Imagine facing an impossible enemy, outnumbered, outgunned, with certain death staring you in the face. Would you stand your ground? Leonidas and 300 Spartan warriors did more than stand. They became the definition of courage that would echo through centuries, transforming a potential defeat into one of history's most legendary last stands. Long before Leonidas was born, Sparta emerged as a revolutionary social experiment. While other Greek city-states developed complex cultural and artistic traditions, Sparta created something entirely different, a society entirely dedicated to military excellence. The roots of Spartan culture trace back to the legendary lawgiver Lycurgus, who transformed Sparta from a typical Greek city-state into a militaristic powerhouse. His radical reforms touched every aspect of Spartan life. Gone were the pursuits of wealth, individual achievement, and personal comfort. In their place, he established a system that valued collective strength, discipline, and unwavering commitment to the state. Sparta conquered the neighboring region of Messenia, reducing its population to helots, essentially state-owned slaves who performed all agricultural and economic labor. This allowed Spartan males to focus entirely on military training. Every Spartan citizen became a professional soldier, dedicated to nothing but warfare and state service. The Spartan approach to human development began at birth with a process as brutal as it was systematic. Newborn infants were brought before state elders for a ruthless initial assessment. Each child was examined for physical strength, potential developmental indicators, and signs of future military capability. Weak or deformed infants faced a horrific fate. They were taken to a location near Sparta called the Apothetai, a steep cliff where unfit children were abandoned, left to die from exposure. This wasn't cruelty in the modern sense, but a cold calculation that only the strongest should survive to serve the state. Those deemed strong enough entered the most intense training system in human history. The goal wasn't just to create soldiers, but to transform human beings into living weapons. At 7 years old, male children were forcibly removed from their families and entered the Agoge, a training system that would systematically destroy individual identity and forge absolute collective loyalty. Imagine children surviving with minimal clothing in freezing mountain conditions. They were taught to endure extreme hunger, suppress individual pain, and view personal survival as secondary to collective military success. Daily training included wrestling, weapons combat, stealth techniques, and survival skills that would break most adult athletes. Stealing was not just permitted, but strategically encouraged. Boys learned to acquire food through cunning, with one critical lesson: they were punished severely not for stealing, but for being caught. This was a profound lesson in strategic thinking, teaching that execution and success matter more than intention. Leonidas's path to leadership was extraordinary. Born into the royal Agiad line, he wasn't guaranteed kingship. Sparta's revolutionary political structure meant leadership was earned through demonstrable merit, not inherited privilege. While other societies celebrated individual heroism, Sparta viewed the collective as supreme. Leonidas embodied this philosophy perfectly. He wasn't just physically exceptional. He demonstrated strategic intelligence, unwavering discipline, and a profound commitment to Spartan ideals of collective survival and honor. His training transcended physical prowess. Spartan leaders were expected to be philosopher warriors, understanding not just combat techniques, but the psychological and strategic dimensions of conflict. By 480 BCE, the Persian Empire under King Xerxes represented an unprecedented military force. This was more than an invasion, it was a potential extinction event for Greek civilization. The Persians didn't simply want to conquer. They sought to completely erase Greek culture, traditions, and existence. Historians estimate the Persian army between 100,000 to 300,000 soldiers, a massive multicultural war machine that had systematically conquered territories across multiple continents. Their army included warriors from dozens of conquered nations, each bringing unique weapons, tactics, and cultural fighting styles. Against this overwhelming force, the Greek city-states seemed hopelessly outmatched, but Leonidas saw an opportunity to transform certain defeat into a legendary stand that would inspire generations. Thermopylae, meaning hot gates, was a geographical masterpiece. This narrow mountain pass would transform the Persians' numerical superiority into a fatal weakness. Imagine a natural bottleneck where tens of thousands of soldiers become a hindrance rather than an advantage. Leonidas brought 300 Spartan warriors, accompanied by approximately 7,000 other Greek allies. Each soldier was meticulously selected. Each understood the near-certain probability of death, and each was prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice. The Battle of Thermopylae was a masterclass in tactical defense. The narrow pass, only about 50 feet wide, transformed the Greeks' numerical disadvantage into a strategic advantage. Leonidas positioned his forces precisely, using the mountain's steep slopes and the narrow terrain to nullify the Persians' overwhelming numbers. The Spartan Phalanx was a military innovation that represented the pinnacle of ancient warfare tactics. Warriors stood shoulder to shoulder, their large shields, called hopla, overlapping to create an almost impenetrable wall. Each shield protected not just the individual soldier, but also the warrior to his left. This meant survival depended on collective discipline. A single broken line could mean total destruction. Each Spartan warrior carried a long spear called a dory, typically 7 to 9 feet long. The first few rows of the phalanx would extend their spears forward, creating a deadly forest of sharp points that would impale any charging enemy before they could reach the main line. Behind these forward rows, additional warriors stood ready to rotate forward, ensuring a constant stream of fresh, lethal resistance. The Persian assault waves were relentless but futile. King Xerxes initially believed his massive army would overwhelm the Greeks quickly. He sent wave after wave of troops, first lighter armed troops, then his elite Persian Immortals. But each assault broke against the Spartan formation like waves against a rocky coastline. Leonidas's leadership was extraordinary. Unlike most ancient commanders who directed battles from a safe rear position, he fought in the front ranks. He wore the same heavy armor as his men, carried the same weapons, and faced the same mortal danger. This wasn't just symbolic, it was a fundamental aspect of Spartan leadership philosophy. A leader who wouldn't ask his men to do something he wouldn't do himself was considered no leader at all. The psychological warfare was as critical as the physical combat. The Spartans' reputation preceded them. Many Persian troops had heard stories of Spartan warriors, their discipline, their training, their absolute commitment to victory or death. This reputation created a level of psychological intimidation that was as powerful as their physical prowess. Each day of the battle followed a similar pattern. Persian waves would crash against the Greek defensive line, only to be systematically cut down. The Greeks would rotate their front-line fighters, ensuring that tired warriors could step back and recover while fresh soldiers maintained the defensive wall. By the battle's third day, the Persians had lost thousands of troops. The ground before the Greek position was littered with bodies, a gruesome testament to the effectiveness of their tactics and resolve. When a local Greek named Ephialtes betrayed their position by revealing a mountain path that would allow the Persians to attack from behind, Leonidas faced an impossible choice. Knowing total defeat was imminent, he made a decision that would transform potential massacre into an immortal legend. He dismissed most of the Greek allies, keeping only his 300 Spartans and 700 Thespian volunteers who refused to abandon him. These men would become a sacrificial rearguard, buying time for the rest of Greece to prepare and ultimately resist the Persian invasion. As the last Spartan fell, pierced by countless Persian arrows, they didn't just die. They became a message, a warning, a testament that true strength isn't about survival. It's about standing for something greater than yourself. Would you have the courage to make the same choice, to sacrifice everything to protect something larger than yourself? The story of Leonidas isn't just history. It's a blueprint of leadership that transcends time, a reminder that true power comes not from numbers but from unwavering commitment.